sky, would I grow wings? If I were trapped underwater, would I learn how to breathe? If I fell from
Hey, welcome back to Centered Students. It's great to be with you guys. We love doing this, and this is a great way to grow. You know, a lot of times we want to spend time with God throughout the week, but we don't take the moment to do it, and that's what we're here for. We'll help you to do that. So we've been talking about Isaac, and we're going to wrap that up today. And this is one of my favorite stories, looking back over the history of the world to see how God called the Jewish people and how he blessed them. And the really cool thing is he doesn't wait until Abraham messes up or Isaac messes up or Jacob messes up, and they all do. They all mess up, just like you mess up and I mess up. He doesn't wait until they do the right thing or the wrong thing and then assign punishment or assign blessing. He assigns blessing before all these stories begin. I'm going to read just a couple of quick verses. Check this out. In Genesis 22, verses 15 to 18, God says, the angel of the Lord called Abraham and from heaven a second time. And check this out. The Lord swears. He says, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. And if we fast forward to chapter 26, and we look at verses 1 to 6, now there was a famine in the land, and besides the earlier famine of Abraham's time. So there's a new famine, and Isaac went to Abimelech, okay, the king of the Philistines, and the Lord appeared to Isaac and said, do not go down to Egypt. Don't do it. He said, stay in the land, and I will bless you. For you and your descendants I will give all these lands and confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. How cool is that? Check out then verse 23. So they went up from Beersheba that night. The Lord appeared to him and said, I, the God of your father Abraham, do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and will increase the number of your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham. It's so cool. Like God just pours blessing onto this family, and it's seemingly undeserved. You know, I mean, they're great people. They made some good choices. You know, Abraham has this faith that he's willing to go and sacrifice his son. It's crazy. Isaac has even more faith in his father. He doesn't even have to make the same mistakes his father did. And Dylan said something amazing when he said that the gospel is bringing about the kingdom of God generationally. And your parents were building the kingdom, and you're building the kingdom, and the people you affect will build the kingdom. Down in North Carolina here, you hear this really cool story about this really kind of mundane, quiet preacher guy who had a basic church, and small down here in the Bible Belt. You can see like tons of churches that have like 50 people, but out of this really small kind of basic church comes a young man who's moderately passionate about the gospel, whose name's Billy Graham, right? And Billy Graham comes from this kind of humble beginning, this small town start, and he, in the end, is having these huge crusades with, one of them had like 1 million people at him. So we're talking about a guy who influenced just one man, Billy Graham, influenced millions and millions and millions, a whole generation of Americans and of the people in the world. Billy Graham's met with the Pope and presidents and world leaders and all kinds. I mean, Billy Graham for the longest time was seen as the face of Christianity as far as Protestantism goes, just as much as the Pope is seen as the face of Catholicism. So this one small church kind of pastor was able to influence and rise up Billy Graham, And so it's always interesting to think, who are the people in your life that you have influence over? Even if you have one friend, or even if you have one family member that listens to you or likes you or follows you around, and they follow you around, that one person could end up being a world changer. Not just saying that, like a world changer. You could end up being a world changer. In youth ministry, we always talk about small groups and community groups, and that small group of 5 to 10 people seems like, oh, where's everybody at? Where's the whole big group? Well, that is the group. Those 5 to 10 people could be the next presidents and the next congressmen and the next world changers, the next preachers. They could influence untold thousands and millions. At Pentecost, Peter stands up and does the first sermon after Jesus dies, and kind of known as the first Christian sermon. Stands up, and 3,000 people come to Jesus. 3,000. That's crazy, right? It's insane. So here's the crazy part about it isn't that it's 3,000 people that came to Jesus. It's that those 3,000 people are the reason that I'm sitting here and you're sitting there and that the church exists today. Each one of those 3,000 people had influence over a small group of people or a large group of people. Some of them became missionaries. Some of them served God. Some of them preached the gospel. And some of them did it in large ways like Paul, and some of them did it in their normal everyday lives. And now, today, there's 2 billion Christians on this planet. From that 3,000 that Peter preached to and God brought them into the kingdom that day, God created the kingdom here, the church, that became 2 billion people. It's amazing. Here's the bottom line in the story of Isaac. God said, I'm going to make your descendants as numerous as the sands on the seashore. Guys, God was not talking about counting the sand. He was talking about an immeasurable body, an immeasurable kingdom. And that is what Jesus came to bring about. And when Peter started it there in Acts chapter 1, we see the beginning of something amazing. And you guys are right smack dab in the middle of that story. You could be the next Billy Graham. Here's a little more pressure. Maybe the next Billy Graham is waiting to have a conversation with you about Jesus. Do it today. Have one conversation. Pick one friend, one person in your life that you could say, hey, do you know anything about God? Do you know anything about Jesus? And start that conversation today. Do it. It's going to change their lives. It might change the world. Stay centered. See you next time.